8:07, worried about basement flooding? Time to call Permaseal, 800-421-SEAL. And it's time to check the roads in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with Jim Telemonte.
Traffic is much lighter today than it was yesterday across much of the Chicago area, but there are still some issues. Reagan Tollway, eastbound 88, the exit to Midwest Road remains closed due to a rollover semi. Northwest Indiana, traffic's heavy on 8094 westbound from the Indiana Toll Road to Ripley Street. Eastbound traffic moves well. The toll road itself is fine right now. Hayden's is clear. No significant delays to report on the Kennedy. About Eisenhower's heavy western into Bird Circle, 31 minutes, 390 to downtown. Outbound 29, down Stevenson, it's tight, California to Ashland, 34 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Line I-57, Bishop Fort, all good. Traffic, I'm Jim Alamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from the 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center. Sunshine breaking out across northern Illinois, 52 for a high temp. Partly cloudy, 37 overnight. 38 right now. Next news, 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. I don't know if I have the will to fight off the coronavirus anymore.
What? I know. Tell everybody.
What's the point? Tom Brady tweeted out "Forever a Patriot," but he didn't mean it. Didn't mean it. He's lying to us.
Why? Was he cheating on us?
Tom Brady announcing that he is not going to be part of Patriot Nation. Yeah.
Who cares? I mean, I don't know. So wait, is he going to go to Tampa, Tennessee? Did he say where he's going to go?
I don't even care. I've already adopted the Iditarod as my pastime, my preferred pastime. I mean, the Iditarod is the new sport of America. So nobody, by the time the NFL gets around, if it ever comes back, we're all going to be in dog sleds.
Don't say that.
Absolutely. No, forget it. On important matters, we had a briefing yesterday by President Trump and his coronavirus task force in which new federal guidelines were promulgated effective for the next 15 days. Important footnote, the next 15 days. And the president explained what they are in general terms.
My administration is recommending that all Americans, including the young and healthy, work to engage in schooling from home when possible, avoid gathering in groups of more than 10 people, avoid discretionary travel, and avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and public food courts. If everyone makes this change or these critical changes and sacrifices now, we will rally together as one nation and we will defeat the virus.
And Dr. Deborah Birx, one of the infectious disease experts that's part of the team, along with Fauci. They work in tandem. Fauci was her mentor, as she's mentioned a couple of times in these briefings. She basically said, look, if you do what we're suggesting you do, if all Americans do what we're suggesting to do, then all this other talk about concern about anxiety over the healthcare system in America being overwhelmed, the need for respirators and ventilators and so forth.
And if everybody in America does what we ask for over the next 15 days, we will see a dramatic difference, and we won't have to worry about the ventilators, and we won't have to worry about the ICU beds, because we won't have our elderly and our people at the greatest risk having to be hospitalized.
And it's strange, President Trump was saying one thing, and then J.B. Pritzker, our governor, said something else. It's not 10 or less. J.B. said it's okay for 50.
I am mandating that any gatherings of the 50 people or more guidance by the CDC will be canceled. Illinoisans who can stay home should continue to do so. It is imperative that our residents take responsibility for themselves.
But the reason why I think that he's saying 50 yesterday is because today people are voting. And in any polling place, there might be at one point in time, 50 or less. And I think he's going to change his tune to what the president said after today's election.
Perhaps.
That's conjecture on my part, but I don't know.
Perhaps. I mean, yeah, so probably adopt the CDC guideline. But the bottom line is the CDC, these experts are not saying, wait for the politicians to green light what we're saying. They're saying every American take it upon yourself to do it.
Right. But if there are groups more than 50, are the police going to be called? Are they going to come in and break it up? I don't.
Unlikely, except to the extent you have establishments open that have been that through executive action have been demanded to be closed.
Okay.
That's the only likely enforcement action people would suffer. I mean, they're going to go door to door to see if you've got 15 people stowed in your home. I doubt it. Justin Trudeau, by the way, our friend north of the border, he also made an announcement yesterday.
First, we will be denying entry to Canada to people who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents. This measure will carve out some designated exceptions, including for air crews, diplomats, immediate family members of Canadian citizens, and, at this time, U.S. citizens.
So U.S. citizens are exempt, but I still think...
This all day.
They're not even a real country anyway.
That was brought to you by the Chinese Communist Party. For more on the topic of coronavirus and all things substantive and political, which I guess is the opposite of substantive, we're pleased to be joined again by Christopher Neiweem. He is an Iraq War vet, political writer, consultant, private business owner. He's also the founder of American Veterans Policy Network. Christopher, thanks for joining us. Please appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Good morning.
So President Trump gave his administration high marks for the handling of the coronavirus outbreak to this point. What say you?
Well, I think that's accurate. This is obviously something that came up pretty quickly. I was thinking back to 9/11, other times in our lifetime where there have been situations that of similar nature, and I don't know that I've ever lived through something like this. I mean, this specific in terms of these restrictions and the way that this has been built up. But I think around the sort of mainstream media hysteria and a lot of just sort of general anxiety among people, the administration has been pretty clear and pretty guided about their actions and the steps they've taken up to this point, been pretty clear about the information and recommendations they've made. And so I would agree with the president to that point. And luckily it hasn't been too politicized. I mean, it has, obviously, Senator Schumer, who I think is one of the worst. He's tried to do it, obviously, but nothing's beneath him in that context. But so far, I would say so good with the administration response.
It's interesting. There is some military presence as part of this response team. The Assistant Secretary for HHS, who is a Navy Admiral, Jarrah, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, and he's the point person for the testing supply chain, if you will. It talked about 1 million tests are now available nationwide. Expect 1.9 million in circulation by the end of the week. And I wonder, even though Dr. Burke, who we heard from on the point about doing what the CDC recommends, she said the core group that's going to stop this because of their ability to communicate and how they communicate in the digital age are millennials. And I wonder if there's a role for veterans to play here, because veterans are about the only group, the military force, about the only group that has widespread respect and confidence among the American public. And perhaps maybe hearing from more military men and women about what should be done and what you can do would generate more compliance.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, and it's really kind of germane to my experiences yesterday, because I actually had a minor biopsy yesterday at the VA hospital in Washington, D.C. for something routine. So I got to go through, corona screening at the VA, and it was interesting. I think on the one hand, that's one thing the military is really good at, is just really basic, simplistic ways of disseminating information and why compliance and organization and discipline can be so helpful in a time like this, to have good structure and really basic response. So that military experience, I think, for many veterans, while it can be sort of lead to many fun tales of experiences in the Army that weren't the most pleasant, it helps build that discipline for times like this, number one. And then number two, I think the VA has done a pretty good job of, under the Trump administration, of just putting out that information, keeping things clear, and they are doing screenings, providing masks, those sorts of things. So I think, being a veteran, we've been sort of almost programmed for all these emergencies, and many don't come to be. I mean, we train for warfare all across the world, regardless of the environment. I mean, there's training for urban terrains, for potential threats or enemies like China or Russia. So I think the military, we've had kind of the advantage, not necessarily the pleasure, in the good old days in training, of actually training and preparing for these types of situations. And I think it's greatly appreciated that the American public has been so supportive. We know in past generations there has not been that support, Vietnam era, but I think for those of us post 9/11, we've been fortunate that the public really does kind of trust us, and I think it is kind of refreshing to look at that veteran perspective on times like this, to sort of push back on the hysteria and just look at, what should we be doing and what's the VA doing and things of that nature.
And just a correction, I think I said that Gorar was Navy. He's 4-star Admiral, United States Public Health Service Commission Corps, which is one of the 8 uniformed services of the United States. So just wanted to clarify that.
Hey, so are you having any personal anxiety over this?
So
the whole shutdown
I'm
and how
not,
our life this is the new normal, hopefully just for 2 weeks, but I have a feeling it's going to morph into a month.
Right. I don't. I have more anxiety over the way that other people react to it, and I've been trying to take those basic health precautions, and just over the weekend I went to the shooting range, just doing basic things. But I did kind of reflect on something differently, which was, when you look at a lot of political issues year to year, even this issue we're faced with now, a lot of things haven't happened that people have talked about. You've heard rumors of martial law and all these things that really haven't happened, but it kind of made me reflect on why the Second Amendment is important, why being healthy is important, why good health generally is important. It really helped me kind of return to logic, because, and I don't want to say that only Republicans are logical. That's not a fair statement, but I do think a lot of conservative policies are built to last and are important. And it kind of made me think why those things are so important, and why hysteria and hysteria politics, we've seen a lot of that in the Democrat primaries, is so unhealthy for the Constitution and for other things. And I was just kind of thinking about the Second Amendment, generalized health, and things like that. But I have been just sort of carrying on as normal, and I think that the more people can try to kind of focus in on that, do the recommendations, I think this thing hopefully will be controlled, the testing will expand, and state and local governments and the federal government can do really their only purpose, which is protecting, or their primary purpose, which is protecting people.
He is Christopher Neiweem, Iraq war vet, political writer, consultant, private business owner, and founder of American Veterans Policy Network. Christopher, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Republican business owner and community servant Krishna Bansal is the strong conservative we need in Congress to defeat Bill Foster. He's a Naperville resident with his successful tech business in Aurora. Krishna supports term limits and has pledged to limit his own service to 6 years to lead by example. Key conservative leaders have endorsed Krishna, including Demetra DeMonte, Chris